You're now listening to Keeba-Live on the Disruptors Podcast Network. Welcome to Keeba-Live. I'm your host, William Lee, and let's talk. Boy, am I sick and tired of every time I turn around, another major school shooting where innocent children are gunned down by some mentally deranged individual who should never have had access to guns, who ends up being a juvenile and walks into a school and just mows them down, just shoots to be shooting, killing to be killing someone. You know, one of the things that I think that we should look at, because it seems to be, at least in my mind, a constant influence on some of these younger, what we call gamers' attitudes and minds. Now, I'm not saying that online games are the reason kids are killing kids, but let's stop and think about it for just a moment. What goes through the mind of an average gamer who's riding in a big military tank and blowing up buildings and jumping out of the tank and taking a machine gun and killing people that are the enemies of that particular game? Or the newer games, which are taking you back into the days of King Arthur, of dragons and monsters and people that are excessively violent, and that you're going to be the superhero and with your controller gun them down. Maybe do you think that in the younger generation of children, especially the ones that are in mid-school, and that would be from 10 until, say 13, 14 years of age, do you think that that could be a possibility when they're not supervised, spending hours and hours playing games and shooting things and blowing things up, that when they go to school and for some reason maybe bullying starts happening, or maybe they just get a sense of negativity that's around them, that nobody cares what's going to happen, and that the individuals that are causing this ruckus in the schools, the juveniles that are big tough guys, what's happening to the regular student whose mind all of a sudden slips back into the world of dragons, killing, and violence? Well, I'll tell you what happens. 9 out of 10 times a mental problem starts, but the schools are too busy figuring out what sex you're supposed to be. And the government, of course, is looking at the factor that if we do not fly the different flags of sexual desire in our schools and start teaching our kids that, Johnny, you may be Alice, or Alice, you may be Johnny, and how we can help you behind your parents' backs change your sexual identity, or maybe the negative attitude that takes over school children when they become to the point where they're worried about being shot in the classroom. Or maybe they're being worried about, is it going to be safe when I get ready to come home? What's happening to our kids? Besides lack of education, now we've got to the point where lack of security. You know, years ago when you went to school, kids, that was a safe place for them. Oh, I know, bullying's been going on since I was in school, and that was when dinosaurs were roaming around. And I understand some of the problems of bullying, and I understand the aspects of what happens when a child's mind is so full of negativity and beat down that anger appears and loses judgment of good common sense. Then we have a problem. But that problem can be solved by parenting. It's simple. Let's bring the kids back home and put them back in the family. Let's tell the schools enough of this, telling our kids what sexuality they have. Let's bring them back to school in a safe environment of learning. There are so many wonderful, dedicated teachers who right now have their hands tied behind their backs because of, pronouns. You got to use the right pronoun. Johnny could be a Jill, you don't know, or all this other garbage that goes along with the factor that, Johnny is more of a feminine instinct, or Julie is a tomboy. She just doesn't realize it. nor does she have time, in either case, for them to mature to make decisions. This is totally wrong. Now, add that to the factor that teachers have a hard enough time disciplining and keeping some kids from tearing the classroom down, from torturing the teachers, throwing chalk or books at the teachers, or throwing temper tantrums. Well, that's just boys and girls being children. No, it's not. It is children not being parented by parents. Let's not confuse the two activities. Parenting has to come back. And if the safety of your children depend on you as a parent, your parenting hat and start using common sense with these children. You know, lately I've met children, and I've got some in my family, that have been raised under circumstances that were out of control because of non-parenting in the home. And they've turned out to be either disrespectful or just totally a waste of energy, and then turn around and have children of their own and decide to parent their children the same way as they were parented. In other words, the link in the chain continues to go on after one generation and another. What does this end up leading up to in the end? Well, it's simple. You have Johnny or Alice that goes to school. All of a sudden, the parents are working both jobs. They're home sometimes. The weekends are awfully busy. The children are pretty well left to fend for themselves, unless, of course, they're lucky enough to be able to have somebody in the family work with them. They become self-centered around, well, nobody cares, negativity all over the place, shooting, I'm being bullied, and etc. What do they do then? Well, they go to school and they try to shake it off. But hey, watch out for pronouns. Watch out for this. Watch out for that. And then all of a sudden the frustration builds and builds and builds. And they have nowhere to release this frustration. So Johnny goes home, finds out that Daddy has a gun, and slips it underneath his backpack and shows up in schools before class, or maybe even during class, pulls out a gun and says, I am sick and tired of you people. Bam, 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 bam. That's great, isn't it? That's what's happening. And once again, we've had another massacre in a school. What is going on? I don't know. Should we put cops in? Let's see. We have 500 kids in this school, so that means we need 50 police officers with guns and a dog. Got to have a dog on patrol from the time the kids get off the bus, escort them from the bus to the door, into the classrooms, make sure they're sitting down properly, protect the teachers by putting them in boxes with a window in it, see, so, and they move and the box moves so they can write on the chalkboard, and the students can't throw knives, books, or chairs at them. And in case of a shootout, make sure it's bulletproof glass, because we wouldn't want to have any other violence happening. This is absolutely the most ridiculous and unheard of thing in the history of schools. Now, the newer schools, yes, many of the older traditional schools where they had a front door you could walk in as a parent, not have to be searched by an officer or check a metal detector before you go in, or even be frisked to make sure that you don't have any weapons on you. Check those bags, any suitcases, anything that you bring in. And you feel like, and I've gone through this myself last year, when I visited with another group of adults, a school, to see what's going on in the schools. And I really felt like I had just entered Walla Walla, and I was on a visitation with one of my relatives that's doing life for murder. That's the way I felt. And when you see these kids marching up and down the hallways and the instructors in the front leading them into the bathrooms, do you have to go, Johnny? Okay, you two wait. Johnny's in. Okay, you go, you go. And watch everything that's going on for fear that somebody is going to get hurt. When I watch teachers get the classrooms emptied out, lock down the doors, check around, make sure everything's safe inside, then lock them down more, and go out with the kids into the playgrounds or different areas where they're being watched very closely, which is good, and then come back in, unlock the door, and stand there like a prison guard and make sure, okay, let's take it 1, 2, 3, 4. This is ridiculous. This is unheard of. And then lock the classroom door so that nobody can get in or out without through some sort of a device hanging on the wall, maybe a phone or something of that nature, saying, hey, this is a principal. I need to enter, please. And having the teacher check out through the window to make sure that is the principal and open the door. How can kids learn in an unsafe atmosphere, an environment that is prone to represent the possibility that, Johnny, you may not come home tonight because Joey may get mad and Alice join him and they've got guns? This is so redundantly ridiculous. Kids can't have lockers anymore because they're afraid they're going to put guns in the lockers. And, things will transpire. I mean, what are we going to do? There's just so many teachers. Well, that's very true. How can we curb this? How can we give the students back the freedom to become students in a learning environment? It's simple. Number one, we take assault weapons that are for military use and we take them out of the hands of citizens. I know, I'm a gun advocate. Don't get me wrong. I am, but I don't see any reason for somebody to own a gun that fires 320 shots by just pulling the trigger and standing back and holding on to it as it sprays bullets all over. Now, some people say, well, Bill, you just don't understand. You don't go out and hunt. Well, I do understand. And one of the things I understand is that very seldom does a wild animal have the chance to take out an Uzi or an automatic military weapon and return fire during hunting season. The ridiculousness of owning a gun that cuts a tree in two in 3 seconds is totally asinine. Now, the next thing I disagree on is having clips that hold 30 and 40 bullets. If you're that bad of a shot, you shouldn't be shooting at all, period. It makes good sense, doesn't it? Because I always thought that if there's a home invasion and you have a firearm and you grab that firearm, usually 1 to 2 shots ends that home invasion. But I guess I'm wrong, and you need 30 or 40 so you can shoot all over the wall and make sure that you hit the person or persons that have come in to rob you. Yes, home invasions are dangerous. Yes, school problems are worse. And the fear of having police officers armed and walking up and down the hallways with guard dogs, things of this nature bring back in the child's mind, first of all, a lack of safety, of security. Oh, well, after a while, they'll get used to it. After a few years of seeing these officers walking with dogs with guns and cameras and patrol cars sitting out by the parking lot areas that are with a shotgun in the window, everything will be fine. They'll get used to it, and potential people that are going to come in and try to shoot the school up will think twice. No, we've already seen that not work. And how many times have we read that within a short period of time that Johnny actually wrote down, or Jill wrote on their social media page, how upset they were and the plans they had to get even? How many times have we read that or heard about it in the massive media after the shooting has taken place? It is incredible that nobody seems to read stuff of this nature ahead of time to be able to stop and tip off the law enforcement agencies or the parents to get help for Johnny, because he psychologically is going to the side that causes him to become violent. Why aren't we not watching for this? Or do we just say, okay, Johnny or Jill, okay, dinner's done now. Your homework? Well, don't worry about it. Go ahead and go in your rooms with your laptops and shoot games and do whatever you need to do. Lights out, 9 o'clock. There you go. Not paying attention to what they're doing on the internet is also a major issue that I have with the internet. TikTok, which has become an educational tool to learn how to steal cars or to have challenges, or even the newest trend where major television and movie stars have 30 seconds of stupidity. Maybe they're doing the whatever dance is being promoted by record companies. Or maybe they're just petting their dog and licking the dog's face. Funny things that they think are funny that gain millions and millions of viewers. And then they can sit down on other mass media platforms and, hey, I've got 12 million viewers and followers on my TikTok. How about you? Or how about Instagram? I've got a lot of people following me on Instagram that, well, used to view TikTok. This is wrong, folks. This is absolutely ridiculous. But, hey, TikTok has made a major dent in social media, and our kids are absorbing all this. I'll tell you an example of how much they absorbed. You probably heard me on one podcast talk about the big Teachers Slap the Head challenge, or the recent one that has costed hundreds of thousands of dollars, the gentleman that showed you how to steal a Kia or a Hyundai automobile, which usually was used to smash into pot shops or jewelry stores. This is a wonderful thing, isn't it? All this media without attention by the parent, lack of having parents' guidance, all the wonderful gaming and all the great moments that they have, challenging their superhero attitudes to take care of the monsters of 1,000 years ago on the tube, being unwatched, unsupervised, and not learning reality and being lost in a world that doesn't exist. Something like Facebook was doing there for a while with Meta, where you could go up and pet a dinosaur or something. This is all ridiculous. You know, people now are getting upset about AI. Oh, it's going to take over the world. You know, I'm beginning to think that if AI came up with a program that was really decent, they could do parenting better than most parents are doing. The lack of bonding with your children, the lack of parental advice and control is what's causing these shootings in schools. It's simple as that. And I don't think, in my mind, unless you put razor wire around the building, unless you strap the children down and use lie detector tests when they come to school each day to ask them if they're angry with anybody or if they think they want to shoot somebody, is the answer. I also do not believe that the schools should be put into this fear, because this is an epidemic. This is not just a normal boys will be boys. This is an epidemic of violence. We parents need to be parents and start communications and conversation with other parents to help out, to put together communities of parents that are working to make our schools safer. Get involved in schools. Find out what's going on in your child's school. Get involved at home. Watch what they're doing on social media. Pay attention to some of the activities and the mood changes that may come up. If you do that now, the chances of your kids being shot or your kids becoming the shooters is far, far less than you can imagine. Let's bring back family parenting. Let's bring back the safety of schools. And let's bring back a better day for kids for a better tomorrow in our country. To reach us or comment about our shows on the Disruptors Podcast Network, simply email us at keeba-agency, that's KEEBAAGENCY, at gmail.com. That's keeba-agency@gmail.com. Or check with us in our new website we're building at keepasmiling.com. Thanks for listening, and until we are on the air again, let's keep on talking.